Greetings. Welcome to another video. Tonight's video is at least 12 days overdue. I had a comment in one of my most recent videos comment section that has lingered on my heart as I try to come to grips with how to respond to the comment, which was in the form of a question regarding the Accomack Indian, the Accomack American, Lisa Cypress. Part of the reason for the overdueness of this video is I am actually just off the heels of redoing all of my paperwork. Now, when I say redoing my own paperwork, really it's just an updating, an editing, an adding or editing of what I have already sent out. But now I have redone my paperwork to reach more public officials. So I wanted to, add certain names to the mailing, just an overhaul of what I already said. And what I already said, as I look at my stand videos, really, it was good enough. And it still is, but, you just kind of want to keep your freshness of spirit and intent. You want to make sure your documents are as current to your knowledge as possible. So therefore, I decided to do an overhaul. So that's what I've been doing. It's taken me a great deal of time. You do a document, you look it over, and you realize how many mistakes there were, and then you try to catch them all. And it was actually it was rather grueling and a little bit uh, it just it's a necessary chore, But anyway, that's what I've been up to, as well as I have been really thinking of in one of my previous videos regarding a comment I made about Lisa, which is, I think, part of the reason why the commenter brought her up again, because in one of my videos, I do believe I mentioned a possible petition. Um, so that has been on my heart. Uh, I come to the video today because of my first draft of such petition, and I want to dedicate this video to the commenter who asked me regarding the imprisonment of Lisa Cypress, who, as we speak, is unlawfully, unjustly being held in a prison in Virginia. Along with that, a colleague of hers who has a popular video channel, The Indigenous One is the name of the channel, did a video, I believe, just yesterday, and we got to hear Lisa Cypress speak again. I was so moved to hear the strength in her voice, and I was saddened that it's taken me a while to really focus in on this travesty of having an Algonquin fellow Indian, no less, being held in prison as we all speak, and we seem to not care that someone of our people is in a prison. There should be some conversation on this. And so here we are today. I'm going to read my first draft of a petition. What I hope to do is to soon after posting this video, I will look to post the wording of the petition. It is my hope that those who are moved to will look to print it out and mail it to the prison where our sister is being held unlawfully. Now, I wanted to keep it on one page, so it's a little abrupt unless I make further edits and add line work, a place to sign and all of that. Until then, I'm suggesting that you just sign it. You just sign it. Maybe put whatever contact you're comfortable with, email. But it will be a stand on business. And it is for those who are ready to take a stand on that business, even if you have not yet fully situated yourself. What we need is numbers, people who understand the assignment, although they might not know all the ins and outs, but they are appalled enough at the mere idea that a sister who used her land patents to reclaim her land is now sitting in a prison cell. I ask you, where is the justice in that? But I do tell you this. Lisa Cypress has now, by her trials, she has revealed to us land patents don't really mean a thing. I want to say that none of this paperwork means anything if we did not create it. This paperwork, we will have to be become more aware that any documentation that a foreigner gives you that suggests that he has the authority to return your land has to be completely unnecessary. Completely unnecessary. When something belongs to you, there is nothing to be done except to have it returned to you. No questions asked, no paperwork from a federal system needed. It is yours, they know it, and you know it. We are peaceful American so-called Indians, but we stand on Indian birthright business, American Indian birthright business. What Lisa Cyprus's unlawful imprisonment shows us is that even when you have what this government calls the highest title in their paperwork, a land patent, a land grant, they don't have to honor that. Why? Because it is theirs. It is not ours. We don't need anything of theirs to claim what is ours. You just have to understand that. Because if you don't, you will always be seeking for your oppressor, your colonizer, to create some kind of permission slip for you to get your land back. You don't need a permission slip. They're not in a position to even create a permission slip. It is the owners of the land that create any permission slips. So I hope Sister Lisa Cyprus will get to listen to this video. And I hope that she might consider the validity of the assignment and approve of the endeavors of American Indians, not civilized, but American Indians who understand that they don't have to be civilized. We never had to be civilized to own our land. It was an unjust notion from the start. It was just a way for colonizing entities to seize our land and then proceed to basically act like as if we don't exist, making up false identities that they know damn well are not protected in any legal situation. Why? Because they are created. They are made up. Even calling us Indian when we are or should be known as Americans, the first Americans. That alone would render their contracts null and void. How so? Because the entity they're referring to does not exist. Therefore, the contract does not apply. But what does apply is who was here when these colonizing entities first arrived here. Giovanni Verrazzano described us as not unlike Ethiopians with dark skin complexion, short hair, tied back in a small tail, a small tail, akin to like a rabbit's tail, I would say. I mean, that's as small as a tail can get. So the Indians that were found here in the South, because they try to make it like Algonquins did not exist in the South, only the civilized tribes, not possible. Before they were civilized, they were Algonquin speaking. But it's all to show what the phenotype of the original people were. Dark, not unlike Ethiopians. So that means we were dark-skinned, and the phenotype was like that of an Ethiopian. Though we are not Ethiopian whatsoever, we are American. So again, I want to share my screen. I'm going to show why I'm speaking, because I was asked the question and I had always intended to answer it. I just, again, you have to begin freeing yourself before you can speak for another. And so I needed to work on my paperwork, but the entire time, all I'm thinking about is this question here. If I may mention the person that goes by Akamak Amerindian Taloff. Now, I will say he did not intend to be put on Front Street like this, and I am not, trying to implicate him in anything to be construed as against him. No, we are all for a brother who is asking a question. But as you see, I couldn't even show the brother love. I couldn't even heart this comment. I didn't even thumb it up. Why? Because I knew I had to answer first. It's taken me again. This was 12 days ago that this Indian asked this question, and I just had to sit with it as well as finish up what I was doing. And I'm pretty much there. This comment was under my Sunday Speak video, as you see here. I'm going to blow this up a little bit. Sunday Speak Part 1. That was a month ago, and his comment was 12 days ago. So I would like to read the brother's comment aloud. He says, "Greetings. Is there a way to contact and make conversation about Accomack Lisa Cypress's false imprisonment for recovery of stolen land slash property? With two question marks. The brother want answers. The only thing I could think to do, besides uh, a I would when he says contact, there is information for those who would like to contact Lisa Cypress. I looked it up. I'm going to look to put it in the comment section. But hopefully there will be those who, when seeing the petition, will look to sign it and send it. Um, I think it would be a way to maybe keep count if those who sign could perhaps email me to just it would be to keep some sort of count. Um, so there is the question. I sat with this for 12 days, and I would like to share my first draft of a petition. And I want to talk a little bit about what Lisa was saying in this last uh, call from the prison she is being unlawfully held in. Okay, so once again, let's read the question one more time. Accomack American, I'm sorry, Accomack Amerindian Taloff asks, greetings. Is there a way to contact and make conversation about Accomack Lisa Cypress's false imprisonment for recovery of stolen land? I like to call it land because property is a term that they use in commerce, and it gives them the illusion that somehow they have jurisdiction or dominion over our land. Okay. Without further ado, let's look at the first draft of the petition. We'll read it together as we always do. Nothing different there. And if I come across some typos, please pardon me. I'm thinking I got them all. Okay. A petition to the United States municipal, state, federal, international, etc. government entities for the immediate release of a sovereign American so-called Indian, Lisa Cypress. Now, if we ever have any Indians, we would put their name in that place where we see Lisa Cypress, who has been and is being unlawfully imprisoned in the United States prison system. We fellow first American so-called Indians, the sovereign men and women of the land who were unlawfully federally misclassified, colored, Negro, and Black, now acting in the capacity and full, unadulterated, non-miscontextualized, non-misapplied, and standalone intent of precedent, Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 of the Constitution for the United States of America, do hereby peacefully and lawfully demand the immediate release of above named first American so-called Indian man or woman, and that any and all militaries, people, persons in or employed by the United States, as well as the several states, districts, territories, and agencies thereof, or alliance with the fictitious foreign corporate United States entity that has occupied and dominated the entirety of all our ancestral lands known as the Americas, Canada, the surrounding islands, and the area known as the United States. Upon receiving and or awareness of this petition, do consider your corporate, private, or public entities, as well as yourself and whatever foreign titles of nobility you hold, as the basis to your despicable and outrageous unjust claims of plenary authority to indefinitely, permanently, politically, and physically enslave and genocide all first American so-called Indians, the sovereign men and women of the land who were unlawfully federally misclassified colored, Negro, Black, we all, as the sovereign birthright owner, men and women of all our ancestral lands of the Americas, we do hereby consider you and all foreigners who reside and occupy any land in the Americas formally put on notice. Now that's a mouthful. But hey, that without the approval, so we're putting them on formal notice, that without the approval, consent, and renting or leasing agreements of uncivilized, non-corporate, misclassified, federally per misnomers mentioned above, please be on notice that you are trespassing and squatting on our ancestral lands. Any debts or compensations due on this land are due or payable to we, the birthright owners of the Americas. If you are unable to pay in any way we desire payment, be it gold, silver, etc., you are by default living here as our indentures, subject to removal or expelling unless agreements are made with we as uncivilized American so-called Indians. I want to say something about this. There are strong words because they have to be. We want this fictitious corporate entity that eats up living men and women to understand that we owe nothing and that they have profited off of their taking ownership of our land. That is all owed to us. That is all owed to us. That is what we're saying here. So it is not owed to a foreigner because the foreigner owes it to us. And I strongly suggest that American Indians take it in credit. What do I mean? I mean that is all expenses paid for by this occupying fictitious entity on the land. Now, we advocate peace, but we must speak in complete ownership of what belongs to us. So, although we mentioned gold and silver, what I think we actually want is the full understanding that American Indians don't owe anything. But because we are owed everything that has been taken from us and profited on, we do not owe anything, and we are entitled to having all of our alleged debts already paid for, considered already paid for. The bills you get, they are paid for. The expenses you need for food, just like when the illegal aliens came and got a free freaking meal ticket at our expense. We see what the prices of food are today, right? Yeah, we're paying for what these illegal immigrants received freely. So the occupying entity feels that it can just give away whatever they don't own to anybody they choose while charging us for it. This is an incorrect assumption. What we need to remember is that all of these folks have homelands. Coming to take ours leaves us with no land at all, while they have ours and theirs. This is what fuels a statement like what we just read. It is not that we're taking anything from these thieves. It is that they have ours and theirs. Hell are they to just have it like that? To have theirs and ours and leave us with nothing? It's not flying, y'all. I don't care what anybody says. It's not flying. Next page. We were known as Algonquins, yes. Now, a lot of Indians will have issue with this because they might not identify as Algonquins. But the first language was Algonquin. The first people colonizer met here were Algonquin. Therefore, it is Algonquins who remain the priority Indians because it is Algonquins that are being discarded. It is Algonquins that were by and large made indentures on their southern lands. You just have to do the math. So when we stand in sovereignty, we can't be civilized. Algonquins, for the most part, are uncivilized. So that is why we stand in our Algonquin capacity, because if you are Iroquois, the government is going to look at you and say, well, what are you doing signing a petition? We already got you. And there's just nothing an Iroquois can say except, I no longer identify as in agreement with what the Iroquois Confederacy did. I am returning to being uncivilized. And the first language, the oldest language of the Americas is Algonquin. Now they're trying to change that as we speak, and they're going to try to say Siouan. There's problems with that because you did not meet Siouans when you first came to the Americas and created these states. So there were no Siouans involved in that. It was all Algonquins you were dealing with. So that's why we're going to stand on our Algonquin standing, even if we have been known as civilized tribes or civilized Indians. Civilized Indians do not have the authority to take a stand against the federal system because you have been federalized. Stop being offended and just know what the problems are with you identifying as civilized. It is the Algonquins that this system has sought to erase. We never went anywhere. We were just called black and made least on our land. So yes, this petition, it's really serious. You have to want all of your freedom in order to sign a petition like this. If you are a civilized Indian, you are half stepping and the government will swat you down because you are identifying as a fictitious entity they created called a civilized tribe or a Native American. This is why you must be Algonquin, or at least say that you support Algonquins. So maybe you might want to say they were first known as Algonquin. Some way, somehow, you're going to have to get out of your federal capacity to claim your land. You're going to have to get out of your civilized capacity to claim the land. We were known as Algonquins when the first foreigners arrived to North America, and it is under that first designation by which we take full authority over any civilized so-called Native Americans or civilized so-called Indians, such as the Iroquois, in confederacies or otherwise, as well as we take full authority over any civilized tribes, including any civilized Algonquins. So we want to make clear we're not discriminating against the other Indians. We don't want anything civilized. Civilized Algonquins are going to be considered civilized Algonquins. So when you sign a petition like this, you're automatically denouncing anything civilized, anything 501c3, anything incorporated. Why do we do this? Because we want this sister to be released. We don't want any arguments about the fact that a civilized tribe has no authority to even do something like this if they identify as a civilized tribe. This is why we have to do it this way, guys. You're going to have to get out your feelings and think about how bad do you want your freedom? How bad do you want your land? If a title is holding you from that, you better give it up. If being civilized is holding you from that, you have got to give it up. So that's why we can't have you identify that way. Now, you can sign a petition, but when they come to you, or if they should ask you, you better be able to say that you have just surrendered your civilized state because you are becoming uncivilized, your original capacity, and you are acquiescing to the first Indians that were met by colonizer, which were always Algonquin. That's why Algonquins must return. I thought about this a lot, y'all. Uh, I try to look at an alternate way. I don't see any. I don't see an alternate way. As an Algonquin, I can't see an alternate. I have to speak as an Algonquin. Furthermore, an Algonquin who was the first to be misclassified. Why? This happened in Virginia. Virginia is Algonquin territory. Who were the first Indians to be genocided? It was Algonquins. And we ain't even going to talk about how big Virginia actually was, because then we're going to know that the entire United States is Algonquin. So yeah, um, if Indians have a discomfort with this, you can try to make another declaration, but I promise you, If you're already owned by the federal government, your declaration will be seen as toilet paper. This is why this petition is written this way. Algonquins are not the property of the federal government. In fact, we're the ones that they are trying to ignore. And we all spoke Algonquin, as it is known to be the oldest language in the United States. What is the United States? The territory, or what they call a territory, that was formerly known as Virginia. Virginia is Algonquin land. If Virginia stretched from the Atlantic to the Pacific, it was Algonquin land. So let's read this again. We were known as Algonquins when the first foreigners arrived to North America, and it is under that first designation by which we take full authority over any civilized so-called Native Americans or civilized so-called Indians, such as the Iroquois in confederacies or otherwise, as well as we take full authority over any civilized tribes, including any civilized Algonquins who are known as 501c3 corporations or any kind of corporation. As well, we take full sovereign authority on our lands over any entities known as Moors, 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 MWRS, Blackamoors, or any kind, clean or dirty. These are men and women who first appeared in history as originating in North Africa, whereas all first Americans, so-called Indians, the sovereign men and women of the land who were unlawfully federally misclassified colored, Negro, and Black, make no such claims of any African origin whatsoever. We emphatically reject and utterly do not recognize their presumed authority over us or ownership of our land based on skin colors alone, nor do we accept their claims on our lands due to any alleged prehistoric Pangea. We consider any men and women of the land who were unlawfully federally misclassified, colored, Negro, and Black, but who also claim to be anyone or any other variations of the words Moor or Moorish, to be unequivocally foreign to the Americas due to their unfortunate and irreversible indoctrination and civilization under the North African Berber peoples, who now also claim to be indigenous to the Americas. We, the sovereign men and women of the land who were unlawfully federally misclassified, colored, Negro, and Black, do hereby formally and utterly reject this claim as completely false. Any foreigner, especially those who appear to be the same phenotype of and marry into American Indian families, are henceforth never to assume that this marriage allows for the complete and total eclipse of our distinct cultural identity or the domination and cultural identity replacement by their foreign cultures over our distinct cultural identity and first birthright position as the American men and women of the land who were unlawfully federally misclassified colored, Negro, and Black. Let it be known that we federally misclassified men and women do not seek or need any entity such as the United Nations via UNDRIP or alleged American Organization of States, ADRIP, to grab jurisdiction over us in the guise of their respective declarations. We can make our own. As first Americans never lived on anything known as states, these are foreign to us. We did not invite any states to our land. This and was all conquest under the doctrine of discovery, which as of March 30th, 2023, has been repudiated, rendering all land seizure null, without need for such things as titles or land patents to reclaim what was always our land in its entirety. Lastly, as the United States has financially dominated American so-called Indians, financially, that's redundant. I need to take one of those financiallys out. With their for-profit fiat, we demand all our expenses considered prepaid via the IDs we shall provide to claim this credit form of compensation. And there, ladies and gentlemen, because I kind of want to keep it on one page. But it says what needs to be said. I do see that I need to make some little edits. So by the time I post this in the comments, it will be, we will take out the two mentions of financially, yeah, that was redundant. It ends there and the signature must go under here with a date or an email. And we are sovereign. There is no format we must rely upon. We say what we mean and we mean what we say because we have the standing to say it and the standing for it to be legal, what they call legal, and definitely lawful. So what you would do is just sign the bottom, y'all. Just sign it. Ooh. Let's say, I don't even know if you have to put your name. You could just, you know, but it has to, I guess it does have to tie back to you, just so people know that we didn't just, sign it like one person signed it, every single one that will go. So something like this would have to be mailed to the prison and to probably the state officials in Virginia. We must, I mean, what else is there to do, y'all? If they are imprisoning a person who has what they call the legal documentation that proves that the land is hers, there is no law. What there is the use of the doctrine of discovery, but we have to let them know. That's why I should have said it earlier in this document, but I said it here. We have to let them know the doctrine of discovery has been repudiated and we do claim it. See, something can be done, but if you don't claim it, the beast gets to act like it never happened. So there you have it, folks. It may not be perfect, but it is effective. And it is just a way that Americans who want to can take a stand. When you take the stand, again, you are automatically claiming your land yourself. I realize that as we speak, that, if you have trepidation, with all that said here, you have already claimed your land personally. And we're just letting this system know that they have no right to hold Lisa Cypress in prison. In fact, whatever land she's claiming, it actually is hers, with or without that land patent. Now, the land patent is, I guess, just to give an idea of where it is. But the truth is, all Algonquins are entitled to all Algonquin land, all up and down, north and south of North America, east and west, when you consider the true area of what was formerly Virginia in its fullness, not the little Virginia we know now. We're talking about the whole area of the United States was Virginia, and it still is behind all the noise. But once they rename things, that's how you forget who you are. So they renamed Virginia with 50 different names. Hey, I think I said that I thought everything outside of the 13 colonies were territories, but officially, if it was all Virginia, it was just one big state. You know what I'm saying? Like they're calling them territories. I think what they mean is, well, what you know what? It doesn't even matter. The fact remains, all of this land belongs to American Indians, namely uncivilized Indians, because the civilized Indians, they not only did they change their identity for the Moors that married into their family, but they've taken on a narrative that has them claiming Mali. And I did think I should mention Mali in this document, but I think suffice to just put it all under the Moorish banner. We reject anything Moorish. We are not Moors. And the longer we're confused about that, the longer it will take to own and reclaim our land. We cannot be Moors, y'all. Sorry. I mean, they if they so scared to go home, I mean, they can live here for those Indians who are just so married into them to the point where it's like, oh my God, I can't let old granddaddy go back in there. He can't even take care of himself. Yeah, well, you better let him know his place. All he did was take over what was yours and then had you following his lead. And that's why I want to mention Lisa. She just as much as said that in her last interview. She calls out the Moors. She knows now that they've misled her, like they mislead all of us. Okay? And we read what we had to say about that. As well, we take full sovereign authority on our lands over any entities known as Moors with an O, Moors with a U, Moors with a black in front of it, of any kind, clean or dirty. You're going to have to be American because a Moor has too many ties to North Africa, and we are not going to sit here and act like you don't, even though you act like you don't. Find yourself. You better understand that as they say, when in Rome, you do as the Romans do. We didn't do Morocco. Now, this ain't Rome, so don't get that twisted either. This is America, as far as we know. And the land known as America and the Americas. Okay? So, yeah, I just quickly want to say that Lisa herself spoke against the Moors, and that's really what I feel gave me the spark I needed to begin to write something like this. Okay? Another thing I want to touch upon is if you might be aware of this, but in Canada already they're conceding to what they call Aboriginal title in British Columbia. I hope Indians have been watching that. Perhaps we'll have to try to link a video in the comment section about it. But be warned, once again, it is the government making moves. Now, it looks good on the outside. It is good that they are in the ballpark of understanding the kind of ownership, birthright ownership, a real American Indian has over any foreigner. But we have to be careful because the corporation, from what I understand, they're still dealing with Mongolian Indian, so-called Indian. So they're going through the motions. And what is the effect on American Indians when a colonizer corporation goes through the motions as if they're cleaning up their act. The effect is we sit back and think that the work is going to get done. It is not going to get done properly. It it is it's like taking, okay, say I am a puppeteer. Now I took American Indians and I misclassified them and set them, they're just in the audience watching my puppet show. So I am on the stage and I have a Native American sitting on my lap, like a ventriloquist. And I'm telling this Native American that I recognize your Aboriginal title and I'm going to give you your land back. Now, immediately we should know what the problem is, right? First of all, that's a dummy on his lap. It's not a real person, but everyone in the audience is going to think, "Oh, look, he just gave back the land to that Native American or slash American Indian," because they use those interchangeably when really they're always talking about Native Americans. They're never talking about the copper-colored Indians who are not unlike Ethiopians in color and as dark as Ethiopians in color. They never really referring to us. But when we see the puppet show, we think that means it's going to come to us. No, no, it's not. It's not. The dummy is going to get that advantage. But they still got colonizer hand up their ass, making them look real. That's how we have to look at this, American Indian. They're very good at this. This is what I believe is happening with the current administration, y'all. So just a dog and pony show, y'all. And we think, see, what it does is it makes Indians feel like, well, I don't have to do my declaration because they taking care of everything for me. It's never for you, American Indian, ever. It's never, ever, ever for you. If you don't speak, it's never for you. You got to tell them how they can approach you. You have to tell them how to deal with you. You can't leave it to them. They are categorically in a position that they must constantly act as if you're not there and use a puppet to represent you so you can think that they're actually cleaning up their act. We must write. We must speak what we write. So we don't want to make this video too long. Of course, there will always be naysayers. Nah, nah. Do what you do, y'all. I don't see anybody standing up for this sister. Okay, so if you don't like the way I'm standing up, oh well, maybe you can do better. In fact, yeah, you go ahead and do that. The point is, stand up for the sister, but you better be aware that you are sovereign. Better be aware that you will have to step out of your civilized position, your corporation, your 501c3, and get real. So again, well, let's just quickly look at the screenshot. Well, not screenshot, but the actual video where the channel that Lisa Cypress often appears on, the indigenous one, has her on call, and it's hard to hear her, but when the sound comes in, you get to hear. that Lisa is really, I don't know if people realize how important her being imprisoned is to our fate as American Indians. Again, it is because this woman took a stand, this American Indian took a stand to reclaim her land. This is why she's in prison. They're making up all kinds of commercial based accusations and convictions. She is not a commercial entity. And she is choosing now, if she was, she is choosing to let it go for the sake of reclaiming her birthright. You cannot claim your birthright and be a corporation. You can't, y'all. You got to be just like what you were when they found you. You are not in a corporation. You are not in a state. When I'm going to say Negropean colonizers found you. So you don't have to be that to get your land back. In fact, you cannot be that to get your land back. Indians who think they can, you're kidding yourselves. Indians who think they can be United States citizens or even state citizens, you're kidding yourselves. You have to be, again, what you were when they found you here. They did not find states when they came here. They created those. They did not find citizens when they came here. They created those. They did not find us holding land patents or titles when they came here. They created those. Everything they create, they have the right to not go by. It's like creating laws because you know you don't have to go by them. You just speak them, write them down, and then you just tell Indians that they better. And so that's what we have to do, American Indians, because we actually have the birthright standing to do so. None of their laws apply to us. It was all conquest. It was all the doctrine of discovery. The cases that they see as the foundational cases of their federal Indian law, the awakened attorney Peter DeRico calls it federal anti-Indian law because he sees how anti-Indian federal laws are. They're all based on the doctrine of discovery, y'all. It's not even based on their codes and regulations. Codes, rules, regulations, they don't go by that. But even if they did, that would not constitute you having birthright dominion. You're still caught in their codes, rules, and regulations. You don't need those. So again, it's all conquest. There was no, a lot of Indians are being taught by the new narrative of that. The Moors have to change the narrative depending on the degree of awakened Indians. So now they get real crazy. They're trying to say that we were England that colonized ourselves. That's what they doing, y'all. I told you this before, but this is real. Little by little, they're trying to say, no, no, you guys are the Europeans that colonize yourselves. Well, why would we colonize ourselves if we were already European? Why we wouldn't have to colonize ourselves. And we certainly wouldn't make ourselves the lowest in the caste system. Somebody else did that, y'all. But they think that they got us so on lockdown that they just have to say to us, well, you was the king and queen that did this to yourself. Just how moo the fool do you think we are, Moors? It was a church entity that started all this. A church practicing a religion that we never knew. All the royals we know of were basically crowned by the Catholic Church. So how could we have been the nobility that colonized ourselves when we were not even of the church that made the nobility noble? So you're getting a lot of crazy now. They have to say anything, y'all. They just need you to bite it. They think that all they have to do is say it, make it sound official, show you some janky proof, alleged proof, and boom. As long as we tell them that they was the royals, they're gonna like it. They're gonna buy that. No, we're not. No, we're not. I don't have to be royal to have my birthright. And that's another thing Indians don't seem to understand. They think that it was a king that gave us our land. No, it was our birth that gave us our land. It was being born here and originating here. We did not come from Africa. That is a lie. On that note, I want to say, do you know, oh, on this same channel, the indigenous one, the video before this featured a woman who went to Africa and found out Africa don't let people just come and stay, y'all. You got to lease. Didn't I say that we can only lease or rent our land? Well, guess who's doing that already? Africa, y'all. And when you come strutting over there talking about you're a Moor and you're African American, guess what? You too have to rent or lease that land. You do not get a free lunch, y'all. You don't get a free lunch. Now, a Moor can come here and say, just because he looks like you, everything you have is his too. But the flip side of that, you go to Africa looking like them, everything is not yours, American Indians. Everything is not yours. You got to pay like everybody else. So this is our message to the Moors. You look like me, but you got to pay like everybody else, my Negro. It is the Moor that has us so confused, y'all. If it was just Caucasian, this would be so simple. It would be so much simpler than it is. But because we got those who look like us talking some bullshit, it seems to get us every time. Not no more. Not no more, though. You can fool some of the people some of the time. But it don't even take that many to knock down that house of cards. You Moors are the most trifling things on two legs before your monkey ass stood up. Because that theory of evolution is yours, right? So even when you was on all fours, you was trifling. Hopefully you go back on all fours since you originated from a gorilla. That's your story, Moors. And in your fantasy island, you would like that to lead to all of us becoming Caucasian. Again, why do Moors love Caucasians so much, y'all? Well, it's not really love. It's a power move. It's a power move. People who mean ill, they need to have something that they can say was not original. That's why they hate Americans so much, because we are original to America. They don't like original things. They want to, if they can, even if they tweak your DNA, they feel like that means you're not original. If they get nanotechnology in your body, in their world, that means, oh, you're not a man or woman no more. You are on your way to becoming a robot for us. This is how the top line Moors think. Now, the lower level Moors might not know that this is the game plan. They, everyone's just getting a big ego rub. It's like you walk into a temple, a Moorish temple, and you're going in a car wash. You just got all this ego rub and polishing and buffing you and all that. And you're not really paying attention to what's really going on. But eventually, their own words will witness against them in terms of ever being known as North African Berbers. And as we said, they don't want the rest of Africa. They only want North Africa, but they want every bit of American Indians land, although they don't want their own birthright in Africa, where they say they came from. Yes, they're going to try to change that story now. That's why we can't allow people to just come up with new stories, y'all. They do that for a reason. Now, the story is going to make you think like, oh, I was a king, I was a queen, so that's all I want. That's all I'm concerned about. We didn't live in teepees. That's all I'm concerned about. We dressed in suits. That's all I'm concerned about. But no, you've just been buffed. You just been polished with the bullshit. You're trading your birthright for a luxurious or more fabulous narrative. I like to tell Indians it this way. I don't care if I was in a ripped up loincloth. As long as I know the land is mine, you can't shame me for what I was wearing or how my house looked. It's still my land. But what we're getting, what I feel we're getting, American Indians, is that we're being shamed. Like it's like I think American Indians they're forgetting that you can't throw away the baby with the bathwater. Don't be too concerned about how they describe you dressing or the type of architecture you lived in. In fact, the more rudimentary you dressed and the more rudimentary your architecture was, only shows that you're the firstborn. What that means is you predate the fine linens, you predate the fine architecture. Never be ashamed of your beginnings. But that's what the Moors are out to do, shame you for your look. It's like they'd have you believe that they just appeared on the earth already decked out in Gucci suits before Gucci existed. That's just the impression that you get from basically that's what it boils down to. Like they don't have a rudimentary beginning. They were born fabulous. But you American Indians, oh, look, y'all was wearing these little loincloths. Yeah, that's because I've been here for forever. So I'm not ashamed of a loincloth, y'all. I'm not ashamed of a teepee. What I'm concerned about is who was here, me or you? What was the teepee built on? We said this before, y'all. Nothing new. Whose land was the teepee built on versus the brick house? Whose land was both of them built on? Okay. That's what we want to be concerned with. Now, a Moor came over here looking like a whole city mouse, right? So to them, that means they should take your land because you're not decked out like they are. But then you have to ask yourself, but then why are you here? Wherever you came from, apparently it was the epitome of luxury and fashion and everything affluent. So why are you here? And that's when they're going to take a slug or a puff on that fancy pipe and not have an answer for you, y'all. It doesn't make sense. If I were me, like I am, no desire to leave America, that should have been the case with the Moors. If they had everything where they were, they would not want to steal everything from you. Africa's infrastructure, we'll learn from the video from the Indigenous Ones channel right before this one. Look it up. We learned from the woman who went to Africa just what kind of infrastructure they're working with. What does that mean, y'all? It means they're the new kid on the block. America had an infrastructure because we were here longer. We don't have uh electricity because we have an infrastructure. We have toilets that work because we have an infrastructure. We have paved roads, paved streets, paved sidewalk because we always had infrastructure. Africa is new, so we're not criticizing them for not having an infrastructure. We're just showing that for all the claims that are made of you being a motherland, you're not showing that you have what a mother can provide. That's why all your leaders are looking now to America, American Indians, that they're calling the diaspora. They're looking to us to fix Africa's issues that are always financial based. We can't do that. We can't do that. When you learn who we are and you address us properly and know your place as well as ours, maybe, maybe. But it will not be a given because we look like you, just like I just said. When we go to your land, we don't get to own land in Africa. Y'all got to hear. For all you Pan-Africanists out there who have been indoctrinated, when you move to Africa, there is nothing being given to you. You cannot own land in Africa. They have leases. What they're saying is you can only come here and make life better for us and leave. Guess what, American Indians? When we start saying that, they don't like it. In every other country, if Africa is doing this, it seems to me that the countries who have more should do it more. Africa don't have much, according to the statistics that have list the most impoverished countries on earth. I didn't say it, but they're saying Africa is the most impoverished uh, country on earth, or countries on earth. That's what the statistics are saying, y'all. And yet Africa is not willing to have a foreigner come and just own their land. Why do they expect Americans to do that? Can't do it, American Indians. You are being squeezed off of the planet. When everyone comes here, leaves their homeland and comes here, it's not like you can even go to Africa and live for free. So where do you go, American Indians? You're going to have to stand up. You're going to have to stand. And we're going to have to take a stand for our brethren who are unlawfully imprisoned. Meanwhile, Canada is admitting that what they call Aboriginal title supersedes even private land ownership. Now, there was a debate about that because now they're trying to say, but private can own land too, right? No, they can't. Where did they come from? That's where they can own land. Because you're using a corporate vehicle or a corporate identity known as private, it doesn't mean you get to steal other people's land. I'm sorry. Whether you're private, public, whatever, an American Indian, it's their land. It's our land. If you want to stay, you got to pay to play, y'all. He had a system of tribute, apparently. Well, until we find out that it was a lie or whatever. You know. Um, so a foreigner would need to be bring tribute to American Indians. But it's really, that's what renting is, isn't it? So all the land of Algonquins is Virginia. Virginia was the whole area of the United States. Quite literally, anyone on that land who is not a misclassified black, Negro, colored, owes those called black, Negro, colored rent, compensation, whatever. But I say this, in as much as we would have to use colonizer fiat dollars, they can't charge us to use that. They can't use, technically, they can't even have their interest rates affect us because no matter what, you still owe me. No matter what schemes you have for me to pay to use your dollar, that has to be null until we create our own form of money. The effect of colonizer dollars has to be null. But we don't need dollars when all our expenses are prepaid, like what they gave the illegal immigrants, like what the state nationals are claiming. As we said, it's not just illegal immigrants who were given uh, uh, more money for food than most of us are ever given, even in their system. They supplied those people, y'all, and all it did was raise the public debt. So they feel that that's why they can raise prices on us because we got to pay for what they gave to the illegal immigrants. But what you gave to the illegal immigrants wasn't yours to give. So who is owed the national debt? No one asked. No one asked the federal government, Congress, to spend outside of whatever enumerated functions that their citizens see. Indians were not even part of that, y'all. I sometimes I speak and I have to remind myself we didn't give them no enumerated functions. But I'm just saying, at the end of the day, we are paying for those enumerated functions, although we didn't give them because this is conquest. So foreigners come here, create a government, and then tell the Indians that we created it and we believe that shit. Knowing our position at bottom of the barrel, we think we created this. Anyway, foreigners come here, create this system, and create 19 enumerated functions. And then American Indians are paying for those enumerated functions when they are made into United States citizens who shall not question the national debt. When the government spends like crazy, it becomes a national debt because it is only the government that is doing all of this spending. So they like to spend because they figure as long as we keep the real owners of the land in debt, they can never take their land back because we're going to tell them, no, you owe us $1 billion, trillion, cadillion dollars, and that's going to last for all your generations till kingdom come and the end of life as we know it. So we're going to stay on your land collecting from you for forever. No, you're not. No, you're not. What you're going to do is turn all that debt into a credit for all American Indians. And those who are on our land, rent is due. on top of the national debt credit. It's just as simple as that. You come and you take what belongs to somebody, you profit off of it. They don't see a red cent and you don't see how you owe them everything. You weren't able to do this in your homeland, but you should really try. I mean, if you want this kind of life where you're on top and you're the only one getting paid and you got a bunch of people that think that they have rights, do it in your homeland. I mean, after all, that's where those monarchies were. That's what they had over there, but y'all didn't like it. You came over here and set up the very same oppressive system that you were running from. And you don't understand the karma that's due? Look, I'll say it again. American Indians don't owe anybody on this landmass anything, including the federal, the state, the international. We don't owe anything. So, um, I think we've said a lot. I think, what was this? Since we're talking about misclassification, maybe we will look at this because I found it very interesting that AI even went there. Just to further show you what's going on and why we need to take a stand, not just for Lisa Cypress, for all American Indians, especially the Algonquins. Okay, so we asked AI, why did the federal government misclassify Indians black? Was I ever shocked to see the answer? AI actually said what needed to be said. The federal government misclassified all. See, she say it, but she not going all the way with it. The federal government misclassified all American Indians. It was all, y'all. If you look like an American Indian, you are called black. I'm going to say it again. If you look, or this government thinks you look like an American Indian, they call you black, Negro, colored. Native Americans have nothing to do with that. Some try to say that, oh, they're the colored ones. No, they're not. We were. That's why you had the colored only, and you saw the whole Jim Crow episode take place against who? Colored people. What did those people look like? What did Martin Luther King look like? Who was he fighting for when they said colored? It was not Native American, y'all. It wasn't Native Americans. It was American Indians. American Indians are not Native Americans, and Native Americans will never be us. Whether they are in North America, South America, anywhere in the Americas. Your mother tongue is Spanish. Spain is in Europe. Now, we don't mean this to be offensive. Everyone should be proud of where they come from. No need to be offended. The federal government, so why, we asked AI, why did the federal government misclassify Indians black? The federal government misclassified all Indians, American Indians, as black, as a deliberate strategy rooted in colonial policies to justify land seizure. Why is Lisa Cypress in a prison cell right now? Because her land is being seized from her. That's why. That was the whole point. Had nothing to do with making you a Christian. It made you a fool. Federal government misclassified all American Indians as black as a deliberate strategy rooted in colonial policies to justify land seizure, enforce systems of control like slavery, which started out as indentured servitude. When John Punch tried to run away, boom, he became a full slave. He was an indenture. The first man of color, allegedly American Indian, and most likely American Indian, the first indenture to ever try to run away was John Punch. We saw that in a very short previous video. He, along with two other European or Caucasian indentures, tried to run away. They all got caught. The white indentures got more years of servitude as indentures. John Punch was made the very first permanent, quote unquote, slave. From there, they just started saying he was from Africa, no doubt. But why would you have to make him a permanent slave? Because of his skin color? Give me a break. The only reason why they made Algonquins prisoners of war, the Beaver Wars, the only reason why they made Algonquins indentured servants was to seize our land. Had nothing to do with us being so black or so ugly or so lazy or whatever. It had to do with them assuming what they call title over our land. Point blank, period. So the federal government misclassified all American Indians black as a deliberate strategy rooted in colonial policies to justify land seizure, enforce systems of control like slavery or indentured servitude that turned into slavery, and undermine tribal sovereignty and legal claims to the land. Undermine. They broke up our tribes. Talk about undermine. They put us on allotments and got us paying for blocks and lots. Tax. We are Indians not taxing. We are Indians not taxed. But don't worry. We know that that Constitution is born of the doctrine of discovery. So I'll just leave that like that. That document was born of the doctrine of discoveries. Indians had nothing to do with that because Indians did not have a say. The doctrine of discovery said, if you come to a land and the people are not Christian, that's a big answer opportunity right there for people who got it confused of what religion we were practicing originally. They said we were not Christian. We were certainly not Hebrew Israelite, and we were not Islamic. We predate Islam so many years. That's the youngest. Islam is actually the youngest of the monotheistic traditions. So all of this was done because we were not Christians. Yet the Moors are busy trying to use AI to change that basic narrative. It's not going to work because it throws everything off. It doesn't make sense. You said we were colonized because we were not Christian. So then how would we get colonized if we were Islamic? We wouldn't, meaning we were not Moors. All three of the Abrahamic religions are related. We were none of those. Moors are related to Abraham. We did not know any Abraham. There's no way we were Islamic, although they will look us in our face and tell us that they were here before Islam even existed. They will actually do that, y'all. These people I think they're chronic liars. I don't think they can help it, y'all. It's like a snake can't help but poison you with venom. I don't think Moors understand that that's what they're attempting to do to us. Kill us off, and so that they can say that this was always Islamic land. America was never Islamic. It was never Christian. It was never Hebrew Israelite. So, key reasons for this misclassification include land dispossession. By classifying American Indians as Black, authorities could deny their indigenous identity and nullify treaties that recognize them as a distinct sovereign nations with rights to specific territories. We have rights to all this land, y'all. They just broke us up into linguistics as a means to take our land little by little. Once they convinced some Indians to be civilized, boom, the land was taken. Then they convinced another group of Indians to be Iroquois, boom, the land is taken from Algonquins. Why is it Algonquins? Because those are evidently, y'all, you can't be Algonquin in the presence of colonizer. He must make you Iroquois. He must make you the five civilized tribes or one of the five civilized tribes. And then he can sort of deal with you because he knows he created you. Algonquins, he can't do that because the stories already say that they met Algonquins when they got here. Now they're so desperate, they're willing to change even a story like that, but we can't let them. I try to really make it known to as many Indians as I we can't allow them to bring a new narrative. A lot of Indians are being given new narratives about history. Again, that namely involves saying that we are the Europeans that came here and colonized ourselves. But then you have to deal with the religion aspect because if we were European, that would mean that we were Christian or whatever foreign of the Abrahamic traditions that existed. We were none of those. So, because of cognitive dissonance, we are not putting those pieces together when we say that we were the Europeans that came here. No, we were not. They might have looked like us, but we were not them, and they had a religion that we did not know. So that's why the land was taken from us, and that's why all these treaties are bogus, whether they signed or not. Although I'm hearing that they were never signed. Oh, it doesn't matter. They would still be void because it was the doctrine of discovery. It was not a meeting of minds. We had no choice in these treaties, y'all, because of the doctrine of discovery. You have to say it like over and over until your brain can finally understand what that means. It means there was no business contracts. There was no indentured contracts. It was conquest. What the federal the beginnings of the federal government did is they relied on the wars between Indians. So they pit us against each other. They made sure that Algonquins lost, and that is also how they justify the seizure of Algonquin land. They say we lost. So the loser has to pay for the war in their system. They made Algonquins permanent slaves through being prisoners of a war and assuming that we have to pay for the war. That's how Europeans do it. They say the loser. Now you done lost everything. You don't even have your land. Let me ask you something, Americans. How can you pay for anything when you don't have anything and it was all seized from you? They just have to say you owe it so they can take everything you could possibly ever own. That's how this game is played. But what we're going to say is Any debit that you have applied to American Indians is now to be converted to a credit, although we're not participating in your little private Ponzi scheme operating in private. We are operating in ancestral birthright. That's what we call it. So make no mistake, we are not joining your system. We are not acquiescing to your domination. We are creating a whole new jurisdiction under our birthright. And now you are the foreigner, as you always were and always will be, especially you blackamoors, the Moors with the double O and the Moors with the MUUR. You're all of y'all. It's foreign. You're from North Africa. You don't even want all of Africa and calling us African American. You ain't even African because you don't own all of Africa. You say you're North African. Are so revealed in the awakening. You lie naked and exposed. You Moors. So, one of the key reasons for this misclassification, the top reason, was land dispossession. That's what this is all about, y'all. And let me tell you, they intended for this to last forever. So, what does that mean? We are in active genocide, y'all. If you are here and you're an American Indian, your destiny is to be made permanently. That's all this can lead to, y'all. Either that or converting to Islam and becoming like as if you were the first black thing that ever happened in Africa and evolved into a white man. So you're on a slow, oh yeah, that's another thing. As a Moor, you are apparently on a slow evolution to becoming white. That's what the Moors, they don't want to even see original people on earth, y'all. They would be, if there was a white pill, trust me, they'd be the first to take it. Well, that would be after they got rid of us, I guess, because they still got to masquerade as us because we still here and we still own all the land in the Americas. Now they own all of Africa, they just don't want it, y'all. Talk about despising your birthright. They tried to make us that. In their scripture, they're trying to say we despised our birthright. Oh no, we didn't. In fact, we cherished our birthright so much, we got rid of you who didn't honor our birthright. And you claimed North Africa, but you don't want all of Africa. Why? More? You're so pro-black, aren't you? You're so pan-African, aren't you? Then why don't you? That's a lot of land. You said it's the biggest continent on earth. You don't want all of that land? You want all of the Americas, though? Why more? Ain't you the fabulous one? So then why you want I'm just an Indian over here in a loincloth living in a teepee. Why you want my land though? Again, y'all, I don't care if I was seen as being in a loincloth and living in a teepee. My concern is whose land was it though? That's what my concern is. Indians, check yourself. If you're too consumed by what they say you look like, you are very up for being, shall we say, removed from your land. As you chasing Greek architecture and Roman architecture, you don't have any land to build on because you're busy saying, well, that architecture is what we had. Well, they saying that that was European. Um, so you're being enticed with what they call Greek and Roman architecture, American Indians, because you've been shamed with the notion that you lived in teepees. Me personally, I'll be like, oh, I lived in a teepee? Oh, so you mean I had this land before you built uh your temples to your wish. Uh Lightly respectful. Temples to your chosen deities. So you're saying that before the fanciness came, I was living here in undeveloped land. Okay, so I was here before you. That's how an American Indian is supposed to be thinking. Instead, what do we have? I didn't live in no TP. I wasn't wearing no loincloth. Okay, so you arrived when colonized. Oh, you were more. That's the illusion that they have that you never had. You didn't exist in historic time because you when you arrived, the fabulousness was here already. The fine linens and all of that. So you're a newbie. That's what a Moor is, y'all. To dress in finery like that, that means you're new. Do Indians understand the timelines behind all of these shenanigans? When they say you didn't have all of that, that's because you're older. That's because you're old. You were here before they came. That's why you wasn't wearing the same clothes. That we're gonna go with it, y'all. Ain't nothing wrong with it. What we have to say is, well, why don't you go back to your fabulous beginnings? What do I possibly have that you could possibly need if I was running around here in a loincloth? See, that's when the boy's gonna make up some new shit. Anyway, we're gonna read this and close out. Key reasons, again, we have to start over, for the misclassification include, well, land dispossession is really the main thing. If we were to leave it at that, that would be good enough. That's the basis of all of the discrimination, marginalization, terrorization, misclassification. It's all about land, not the buildings you had, Indians, not the clothes you were wearing. Get over it. Land dispossession. By classifying American Indians as Black, authorities could deny their indigenous identity and nullify treaties, they were already bogus, that recognized them as distinct sovereign nations with rights to specific territories. This effectively facilitated the taking of their land, our land. Enforcement of slavery. In the early colonial era, laws were established that permitted the enslavement of Africans. They never called us Africans, though, y'all, back then. It was colored, remember? Because we were not from Africa. But let's read. But the legal status of enslaving indigenous people was more complex. Let's read that again. In the early colonial era, laws were established that permitted the enslavement of Africans. And you got to wonder, y'all, I'm sorry, we're going to stop for a minute. Why is it so important that, a slave is a slave, right? Labor is labor, no matter what color you are. Don't tell me nothing about, oh, the Africans work harder. Please, you don't care if it's hard. In fact, you prefer it to be hard labor. So if it was any other race and it was harder for them to work, oh well, so what? It's not like you're trying to make this easier. But the question is, why do slaves have to be associated with Africa? Because the American Indians look like Africans. Okay? They have to focus slavery on when you think about it, you're a colonizer. You just want this your world built on somebody else's land. You don't care who's going to do the building. You just need any slave of any race to do it, right? But this focus and this endless discrimination against quote unquote African American, why? Because the American Indians look like Africans, y'all. That is why this government has always portrayed slavery as if it was only to those who look African. Why? Because American Indians look African. If the true Americans looked like Mongolians, let me tell you, every slave movie you ever saw would portray the slaves as Mongolian. You're creating a character profile here, y'all. You have to have the right look of the people that owned the land in order to categorize them carte blanche as African slaves. It's always African slave. Like, why this obsession with African being slaves? Because American Indians look like Africans. Why why does Africa continuously parade a poverty look? Because it makes American Indians look like they should be in a third world, fourth world country. So Africa is in on it. The leaders of Africa. It's never the small people. It's never the little people. It's never the citizens who are over there fighting against Islam as we speak in the Sudan, in a war that is barely talked about because that's how on lockdown. What should we call them? Black Muslims do. That's how secretive they are in their endeavor. They won't let you see that these Africans, the people, not the leader, the people are fighting against an Islamic dominated government while they got Americans here as if that's the greatest thing to be is Islamic. Not in Africa, apparently. This thing in Sudan is barely talked about, but it is the reason why the Pope Francis, was kissing feet, according to what we are told. It is the war in the Sudan that brought the leader of the Roman Catholic Church down to his knees to kiss the feet of those in the Sudan. Average, I guess, citizen is fighting against a Islamic-based governing system, from what I recall reading. Have brothers here in America acting like that is the number one goal because they're so organized. An organized lie always beats. As the brother used to say, brother, what's his name, Unc? An organized lie always wins out on disorganized truth. It's time to get organized, Indians. Time to start writing your personal declarations. Do it for yourself first, because you don't want some group of misguided Indians talking about sign our declaration, and then you find out that they ain't even trying to be sovereign. They are all into the 501c3 situation, the corporate situation, meaning they are willing puppets of federal domination. Enforcement of slavery. In the early colonial era, laws were established that permitted the enslavement of Africans, but the legal status of enslaving indigenous people was more complex. Misclassifying indigenous individuals as black made them subject to slave codes rather than tribal treaties. Both of them are bogus. Providing a legal justification for their enslavement, added to the fact that they're making you the one or the debtor that pays all their debts. So that makes you a slave too. And that renders you unable to own anything because whoever you're indebted to is going to claim it as theirs. So you got multiple streams of enslavement going on against American Indians, so-called blacks, which is why the federal government misclassified us. The one-drop rule. The pervasive one-drop rule, which dictated that any amount of African, see, there we go, African again. If as long as you look like an American Indian, baby, they're going to make sure you are discriminated against and marginalized, and your land is being seized. This is what all immigrants need to be aware of. When you ask yourself, as an immigrant who really does not understand what's going on in the Americas, and you even you are saying this is not right. Why are these people being singled out? Why are they the constant brunt of police brutality? This is why. For you immigrants who actually would think of joining an organization like Black Lives Matter. As we said in a much earlier video, do us a favor and just don't call us black, and that'll solve half, most all the problem. Call us American Indian because we are the ones that are being misclassified black, so that this government can forever and for always genocide us as long as we're here, and as long as they're here, they're looking to get rid of us, grab us into a jurisdiction where we become the bottom of that jurisdiction and the debt slaves of that jurisdiction. What is it? What is it in there that benefits us? Absolutely nothing. We got the richest corporations in the world sitting on our land and don't want to compensate us. All the corn industry is one industry that I always think of as American Indians should be each the equivalent of trillionaires because of the corn industry alone. Now, American Indians are known to have cultivated corn. Everything that uses corn and as a base in food should be compensating American Indians. That is one of the things that I know we exclusively created. That's back when GMOs were not what they are today. And it's a lot safer to consume corn. So that's just an example of why American Indians should have all of their expenses paid. That's just one industry that is still profiting off of an item that was created by American Indians exclusively. Corn is only indigenous to the Americas, y'all, because we cultivated it. We literally, and I don't often like to say created because it does sort of nod to what the priesthood and the scientists of the priesthood are doing when they start getting into a laboratory and doing crazy things. But when we did it, it, it was not, we were not trying to genocide ourselves, y'all. That's all I say. When foreigners like priests that uh, are diametrically opposed to American Indians because they changed their religion to monotheism, and we were never that, to harm us with their genetic creations. Um, yeah, that's just one example of why all our expenses should be paid. Everybody's eating something. It's corn is going to be in there somewhere. Is all I'm saying. It's they really it's just very very prominent in the American diet. It's like it's just everywhere as far as I can see. You know, it's a large industry. Uh, but I've learned that rice is also an American thing. So the food industry alone, some of these staples would have American Indians. I mean, there's no reason for us to be living in any kind of poverty. And the thing is, this is not about arrogance. This is how the ancestors treat their children, the ones who were deceived and led away from them. This is what the ancestors would have. Instead, we are in a sacrifice system. We traded our system for a system that uh, basically openly offers sacrifice as a solution and as forgiveness of quote unquote sins. But American Indians, I can only conclude that we did not, our spiritual system did not involve something having to die for us to be beloved. No, because the deities we dealt with were loving deities. They didn't require bloodshed. It seems like a hard concept, but when you really break it down, it's so simple, y'all. If you advocate love, you have to be about love. What does that mean? What do I mean when I say that? If your deity is about love, it emanates from his being. It does not emanate from the bloodshed of an innocent animal or man or woman or child. This is a concept that the priests really have uh, buried into our deepest psyche. The idea that in order to be loved and accepted or forgiven, which we don't have anything that we need to be forgiven for, y'all. We are not born sinners. Everything is for edification, learning, and wisdom. So some people require harder lessons, that's all, but they learn. So what I'm saying is there is no need for something or anything to be sacrificed. I'm talking blood. Sacrifice of time is a different type of sacrifice, but literally unaliving anything, you're talking about a malevolent entity, y'all. An entity that does not have love as its motivation, as the means of its existence, even. Basically, what you're dealing with is a deity that murdered his own family for position. And that's all that energy will ever do. That's how it replaces the energy of love. But there I go, turn into Pastor Heru again. The one drop rule. The pervasive one drop rule, which dictated that any amount of African ancestry made a person black, was rigidly applied to individuals. Nope, you got that wrong, AI. It was rigidly applied to American Indians who look African. Or even those who simply had darker skin or features associated with African ancestry. That's why Africa is used to justify what they do to American Indians. Because we look like Africans, they feel that they can do anything to us as American Indians. This racial binary, this racial binary erased their indigenous lineage and subjected them to the systemic racism faced by quote unquote African Americans. It's faced by American Indians, y'all. African Americans is a huge misnomer. It's just what they call American Indians in America, okay? Subjective census practices. Well, uh this is really off the mark because we were never supposed to be counted in any census. So whether they are subjective or objective, we were not supposed to be enumerated, period. But let's read. U.S. Census enumerators in the 18th and 19th centuries often relied on their own subjective judgments or physical appearance to assign racial classifications lacking the training or willingness to accurately distinguish between categories. This led to many individuals who self-identified. We did not self-identify, y'all. We were misclassified. Individuals who were American Indians being recorded as Black. This led to many individuals, all individuals who are American Indian, being recorded as Black. Official erasure efforts. In some states like Virginia, remember what Virginia was, y'all, the entire area of the United States. We're never going to let you forget it. In the state of Virginia, which is all the United States, under the Racial Integrity Act of 1924, government officials actively worked to remove there should have never been an Indian category, y'all. But we could break it down this way. The term Indian is a misnomer referring to Americans. But still, even the Constitution is saying that the Americans known as Indians were not to be counted in any census. So that was a big, unlawful, bold ass move for this system to start counting us. They were never supposed to do that. But in that counting, that's where the misclassification happened, as well as the taxing and but we never really had representatives in Congress. If they were completely unconstitutional because Indians don't have representatives in Congress, yet Congress is assuming plenary authority. Now, when you see Miss Jasmine Crockett all upset and arguing and telling everybody that she talks to, dropping it like it's hot, please understand she is not standing up for you as an American Indian, and she can't. So we're not criticizing her, but we're just calling out the fact that she represents these Black things, which are Indians who have been pirated into subjugation, pulled into a jurisdiction that they were never supposed to be in. So, again, folks like the recently very popular Jasmine Crockett, we think she's a hero. Well, she's not a hero for American Indians, is the point. We could say she's good at arguing for causes that she believes in. Nothing wrong with that, right? But we cannot ever think that any quote unquote Black member of Congress is representing American Indians. They can't. It's constitutionally unconstitutional. But again, American Indians, we got to understand we're not bound to the Constitution like we think we are. If anything, it just told a foreign entity that we are not part of it. The Bill of Rights was not for us. Civil rights were not for us. It is for immigrants. But civil rights was created as a result of misclassifying us Black, y'all. So they made up a whole set of laws. Congress did this, along with the Supreme Court. In other words, the immigrants wrote their Bill of Rights and they told the federal government what they require. We were given rights by the federal government. So, no, that would never work for sovereign people because if a foreigner is allowed to make your rights, trust and believe you have none. They do not represent you, they only steal from you and then try to make you pay for debts that they purposely racked up. Uh, let's read this again. Official erasure efforts. In some states like Virginia, under the Racial Integrity Act of 1924, government officials actively work to remove the Indian category. It should have never been there from official birth. We should not be in their birth, marriage, death records, or any of their records entirely. Reclassifying all non-white people as colored. You see? You see? But it was American Indians that were being left out of this, y'all. And we were being emancipated, right? So those were American Indians, y'all. It wasn't Native Americans. Native Americans were just being created as of the 1960s, from what I last read. They became a thing in at least what is seen as a quote unquote legal entity in the 1960s. Here we're talking about 1924. It was all quote unquote Negroes that were being called colored. Native Americans are called Native Americans, not colored. There's some recent YouTubers who like American Heiress, who is very making it very clear that at the time of this racial integrity, there were only so-called black and white people here, right? So they weren't dealing with these other races. It was just black and white, and you had to look black or white. You would have to check out American Heiress's video, but I do believe it was said on other platforms as well. And it's just a way that American Indians are awakening and realizing that they're trying to paint a picture that there was all these different races of people here when there weren't. Because there was only, it was only black or colored, I should say. But it was American Indians who were misclassified colored, black, and Negro. Colored, black, and Negro is the same thing, y'all. Although they try to make colored as if that is anyone. But it's outnumbered by black and Negro, you understand? If it was colored, you just leave it colored. But colored are just the same as Negro and black and African American now. So they're trying to say, well, no, it applied to everybody. It didn't, y'all. It didn't. There were so many of us here that they were only concerned with our phenotype. The others would have, I believe they would have fell under all other persons, as mentioned in the Constitution. But yes, even in the Constitution, it's only quote unquote Indians and free persons. So the Constitution tells you. Now, when did the Constitution come out? 1787. So by the time 1924 rolls around, the Constitution only accounted for blacks and free persons. How so? Because Indians were reclassified black. So that's how we know that even the Constitution is only dealing with blacks and everybody else called free persons. What am I saying? What is the Constitution indicating? It's indicating that this legal system only accounted for those who would later be called black and free persons. It's possible that we the people are a third entity, and I would say that we the people ended up being Congress, the members of Congress. They become like the nobility in this corporation. So they are we the people. Everyone that's not black are was supposed to be free persons, but then they throw in all other persons. So I think that's where they get jiggy with the races. But notice they were not colored or black, it was just Indians. But we know that Indians were misclassified, colored, and black and Negro. What I'm trying to say is to be a constitutional American Indian, or what the Constitution is referring to as Indian, you have to be able to be called not just colored, you have to be able to be called colored, black, and Negro. You see? That's what we're trying to say here. They're trying to create confusion, but the truth remains that there were no Native Americans. There were free persons. And blacks, by reason of it was the Indians that were misclassified black, Negro, colored. Black, Negro, colored refers to one group of people, although they try to say that color just means everybody. That is not the truth. Everybody that is not black were called free persons. They were not called colored. Everybody that is not black were called free persons, not colored. The Americans who can be transitioned from colored to Negro and to black that are the true American Indians. In other words, if you are a Native American and you think that you were colored, you would have to also be able to be called Negro and black to meet the full extent of what an American Indian is. You also have to be uh, indistinguishable from what they call an African. It is only the people who are called African, as we're reading here, that's getting all this ill treatment. It is not Native Americans. This system is calling American Indians colored, Negro, black, and now African. So a Native American would have to be able to fit all of those different transitions to be a birthright American Indian. If you can only wear colored, you do not count, because colored is synonymous with Negro, which is synonymous with black, which is now synonymous with African American. This country would not care about African Americans if American Indians didn't look like African Americans. Notice they don't waste their time focused on Native Americans like that. This whole game has been against who? Coloreds, who can be called Negro, who can be called Black, who can be called African. A Native American cannot fill all of those shoes. They are not birthright Indians. They originate in Siberia and Mongolia. That is where their ancestors live. They are actually cutting off their ancestors in order to claim our birthright, as well as the Moors are cutting off half, almost, what's okay. If North Africa is less than 1/3 of Africa, the Moors are cutting off over 2/3 of Africa and their ancestors to claim our land in the Americas. So everyone that magically becomes American have murdered their ancestors ritualistically by taking on the identity of American when they are Mongolian, North African Berber, European, Negropean, Asian, Spanish, or any other entity that can't be accused of being African. I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, the Moors they're just saying that they're us. So that's how they think that they can take over our land. But what I mean is American Indians have to be able to be called African in order for other quote unquote Americans to be American. We are like a living sacrifice, but our future, if we allow a system like this to dominate, our future is total and complete genocide. Okay, so government officials actively worked to remove the Indian category from official birth, marriage, and death records. They had to do that, y'all, because constitutionally it was wrong for them to have us on any of their records. That's like keeping count of us for extinction. So that's why they did it. They had to know when to have a pandemic and such by the numbers, by counting. That's why they weren't supposed to count us. But they knew they were going to rip that Constitution to shreds because they created it. That's why they don't have to go by it, y'all. You have to make what an American Indian has to do is make a document that they know right away when it's been tampered, or they know right away when it's been compromised or misinterpreted. That's the genius of being a true sovereign. You have to make your own paperwork so that you know when someone goes off script. If you're going by someone else's paperwork, they're going to interpret it the way they want to, and you won't be able to say much because they're going to insist. Why can they do that? Because they have creation rights to do it. Indians have to make their own declarations, not the Declaration of Independence. That was for foreigners. And cosmically and karmically, they have sealed their fate by breaking away, allegedly, from oppression only to become the oppressors of the people that they say allegedly help them break away from their oppressors. They turn around and what do? They become our oppressors by taking our identity. This is all led by Black Moors. So In some states like Virginia, under the Racial Integrity Act of 1924, government officials actively worked to remove the Indian category from official birth, marriage, and death records entirely, reclassifying all non-white people as colored or Negro regardless of their heritage. See, colored or Negro. You can't be colored but not be called Negro. So what? They reclassified all non-white people as colored or Negro, regardless of their heritage. And Negro, as we know, is synonymous with Black, as we know, is synonymous with African American. So again, to be an American Indian, you have to be able to be called all of those misnomers. This was a deliberate effort at paper genocide to deny tribal recognition and legal rights. As American Indians, we don't have to live in tribes. All of this land is ours. The day of tribes is over. We only began to be called tribes, I believe, with the arrival of colonizers. Being called a tribe is like a way of sectioning you off on the entirety or away from the entirety of your land. They would have to be in tribes. The foreigners, the immigrants, they would have to live in tribes because we would be all over the place, as we are. You can't tribalize us if we're everywhere. We're the same people. We're American Indians by virtue of this is our landmass of origin. Assimilation policies. Later government policies, such as the Dawes Act, use tools like the blood quantum. So we know the Dawes Act is bogus, right? The blood quantum metric to define tribal membership. Also, now they're not going by what you look like. They're going to go by your blood, which is not possible, y'all, especially back then. And reduce the number of recognized American. As we said in a previous video, the only thing this government has to recognize is Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3. From there, again, the Commerce Clause becomes very questionable. But the whole document is questionable. We're only trying to deduce that we first appear as the people they found here, which is why we were not supposed to be taxed, enumerated, or represented in their government. But now they're convincing our American Indians that somehow they created this government. Indians, you have to know when you're being gaslit. You just have to know. There's no way you would create a system so janky that you would end up at the bottom of it and not even know that happened. You think Martin Luther King actually knew that he was leading us into a burning building? Okay, so then why did he say that he did? So if we built this system, he would know that he wasn't leading us into a burning building. You see, this is another evidence that he has no knowledge that we who are called Black created this system. First of all, we're being associated with Africa, that's a whole foreign. But what I'm trying to say is even Martin Luther King got tricked by this government because he didn't know how it worked, y'all. None of us, if we're honest with ourselves, we'll admit that none of us ever did know how this system worked. Why? Because it was inceptional. It's an inception thing. What does that mean? It means that at its inception, we are not there. We're just victim of it. We are told that someone came from a distant land and started colonizing. What about that breaks down to we designing a system for them. They didn't need us to do that, and they wouldn't let us do that. We were heathen. We were to be dominated because we were not Christian. So we would not be allowed. Their God wouldn't stand for it. We didn't have the right to design a system for foreigner. And if we did, it would automatically at inception put us at the top of that system. And we could not be pulled down because it would be known that we built the system. What this government knows is that we did not build this system. They just need to say that they were somehow inspired by the Iroquois. Why were you not inspired by the Algonquins that you first found here to build a system? Because you were cutting us out of the deal. You were going to those who we were said to be at war with, because there's nothing but Moors, truth be told. But you went to the ones we are said to be at war with, and you got your system of government from them? Although I was the one that opened the door, the proverbial door, when you landed at my doorstep? And you disrespect me to tell me that you're going to go with my enemy's legal system? Why? I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. The reason why the federal government is in love with what they call the Iroquois Confederacy, because the Iroquois Confederacy were a group of people who were not of the same blood, tribe, or language. So the federal government had in mind that they need a model that includes foreigners, people who are not kinfolk, to be the model of their government. Indians would never want a model of government that allows for foreigners to be just like they're one of us, to the point where we get dominated. We don't need us. Again, when in Rome, you go by Rome's laws. You don't create special laws for Romans when you're in Rome. You go by theirs. What they're trying to tell us, y'all, and they have a lot of Indians believe in this, heart and soul, that we created a system, a system expressly designed for foreigners to come here and be like us. All they had to do was go by whatever laws we had to be like us. We didn't have to design laws to include them. They just had to go by ours. If we let you come, then you went by our laws, point blank, period. We don't create a system for you that excludes us. Because if we're Indians, we were not part of the federal government. Why would we design a system that we are outside of and basically have no control over? We did not have control over these colonies, y'all. Stop lying to yourself. Stop lying to yourself. They were encroaching. All the colonies were doing were encroaching more and more onto our land. That's all they were doing. They did. If we made something, we would make sure that they didn't do that. And that's all they did. To the point where now we have a bunch of states overlaid on our ancestral land talking about they have private ownership. Even in Africa, you are not allowed to have private ownership, y'all. You lease it for a number of years, it is not yours. Who profits from that? Africans. So you want to call us African American, but you don't want to do as our alleged African brothers do? If we were African, you would not be here, according to the way Africa do Africa. You would only be there for a number of years, and you would be building up our land. That's how it works in Africa. You're there for a number of years. You cannot own anything. You can rent, you can lease. Well, baby, let me tell you, that's exactly what America is going to do. That's exactly what American Indians are going to do. The ones who find themselves, the ones who find themselves. Okay, so let's finish this and let's look to close out. Assimilation policies. Later government policies, such as the Dawes Act, use tools like the blood quantum metric to define tribal membership and reduce the number of recognized American Indians, with the ultimate goal of assimilating them into Euro-American society and further opening indigenous lands for settlement. So right there, they're telling you they only use us for assimilation so that they can lay claim on our land. So that means the civilized tribes are only a means to further open alleged their alleged lands, because I just don't really see civilized tribes as 100% American Indian. I just another YouTuber commented on it. One of my favorite, Dr. Tracy McCarthy. She said that something I'm going to paraphrase, but she said it's so odd that these tribes were working so diligently against the best interest of American Indians. She said it, that I'm paraphrasing what she said, and she's correct. No people would work so hard to eliminate the larger group of their Indians or fellow kinsmen. They would not. In other words, what group of Indians would want the largest? Algonquins were the largest, y'all. We are the largest. I think we are. I do believe that we are the entire uh, whole continent of uh, North America. Um, why would little pockets of small groups of Indians desire for their larger group of Indians to be genocided or made gone? Because that puts them at a disadvantage. If you don't have a large, like say now you're a gang of some sort. Now we're not gangs, but why would you give up, like, let's say the larger and more stable part of your gang membership for foreigners? Like, why would you break up your large gang of Indians into small little ones and allow for foreigners to dominate you? Why would you do that to yourself? So that is why it is very questionable the what the Iroquois what the Iroquois actually are and what the five civilized tribes actually are, or any of the Mongolian Indians. We know that they're not indigenous to the Americas. So anyway, the systemic misclassification had intergenerational consequences, resulting in the loss of cultural heritage, tribal connections, and legal documentation needed for many descendants to claim their indigenous identity today. Now, when they say legal documentation, trust it better not be federal documents, y'all. It should have never been federal documents. When you're a sovereign, you create your own documents, and another sovereign has to honor that. If you are working together, they would honor that. If you're not working together, I said this before, but evidence that none of this system was working, we agreed to any of it, is evidenced by how furiously they tried to deny us and misclassify it. So that means we did not agree to everything you're doing. And that is why you have to. If we agreed to the federal system being here, they would not work so hard to genocide us, is what I'm trying to say. In other words, if we really had a meeting of minds, there would be no need for them to come for us because they know, oh, well, the Indians allowed us to do this. So we don't have to fight them. They are okay with this. We were not okay with this, y'all. That is why they spend so much time and effort to this day. Just all it is a game of genocide, y'all. That's all it is. Is how can we create the reality of there being no African looking American Indians in America whatsoever and replace them with Native Americans. That is the game, y'all. Point blank, period. Don't ever think it's something else. It's not business. It's not treaties. It's not any contract. It is conquest. That is all it is. That's why they so vehemently come for you, even after you've been made part of their system unknowingly or even knowingly. And on that note, we're going to say thank you for watching. I don't want to make this much longer. This is, after all, meant to be about our American Indian sister, Lisa Accomack, Lisa Cypress, who is being unlawfully, illegally, unjustly held in some federal, commercial, fictitious prison system. She needs to be released. Indians or American Indians who agree, you need to sign a petition as just a beginning to that end. So we have the petition here. It's a petition slash sort of declaration, which is fine. And we just need American Indians who know what they know to get cracking. Ultimately, we would like to, what we might do, again, I tried to think of a way that these could be signed and counted. But what might have to happen is they first be sent to, I guess it would have to be me. And so I can get a count and then a mass mailing to uh, this prison and to this state in Virginia. So we'll maybe note this in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching and stand strong, beloved sister Lisa Cypress. Thank you, because ultimately you are actually showing us the way. By how they treated you, we now know, yeah, we can't do it in their system. We have to stand on our own, American Indians. We have no friends in the international, national, state, or federal systems. We have no allies. We only have people who wish to make us African, and then they are willing to assist us. Well, assist us in our own genocide? No, thank you. Till next time, be and stay American, sovereign, so-called Indian.